Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we will be talking about petrodollar system. What is petrodollar system, you might ask? It's an imperial system that is produced by Americans. Now Americans produce this system to create a situation where people needs to, not people but Saudi people and Qatar people around this area, being Iraq, Iran, Syrians and Saudis, Qatars, Oman and Yemen and Iran. These countries needed to give their petrol for to main bank of, I don't remember what it's called, but basically the main bank of world order currently being tied to America. They gave this to this institution where it got its value from dollar, meaning that you had to make the transaction as a dollar. Let's say a Saudi prince found oil and tried to produce its oil and then tried to sell it to, I don't know, Somali, let's say. Okay, it needs to go from the Strait of Hormuz, right? From Strait of Hormuz it's going to come down to Somalia, and Somalians are going to have petrol. Now normally those with common sense would go, okay, so they are going to make the transaction between them through their local local currencies, like they are going to exchange dinar with, I don't know what's the Somali currency, but basically Somali currency. But rather than doing that, they are selling the petrol from dollar value, and they need to basically Somali people needs to exchange their currency to dollar and then go make this trade, because before normally you would do, what you would do is that you would change the currency of what you have and your trade partner, right? That's the common sense. But what is different about is that you use the currency of the hegemony being the America, and this hegemon makes of course money, and most importantly dollar gains value from this, because you change petrol to be able to sell or buy petrol. You need to have certain amount of dollar, and that means that you are in need of dollar constantly, and that means you are constantly exchanging your local currency to dollar. And because of this, it causes a situation that you are constantly making a dollar exchange, and this causes the value of the dollar to be up and stay up, and this causes America to have an insane amount of hegemony. Well, it's already a hegemony, but rather than have some kind of periods of power, its power is permanent until, well, there is a very different sides and records from countries that produce this petrol. Now the biggest producers are places like Qatar and Saudis, and Iraq and Iran are producing it, but not as much as Saudis, Qatars, Oman and Iran and these countries. These countries generally, especially Saudis, produce basically the highest percentage of it, and this causes slight concern on them, because they are surrounded by enemies. Now there is a religion difference between Israel being represented by Kingdom of Jerusalem, but there is a difference between these countries, and these countries doesn't feel safe, and Iran causes them to not, especially the biggest cause of them not feeling safe, and this causes them to be, okay, then we are going to follow America on this, but we need protection. And that's the biggest part of these countries, and these countries get this from petrodollar is basically an agreement between Saudi and Qatar and highest petrol producing countries and America, that they will be giving their petrol's value to dollar. They will exchange petrol's normal value rather than they will exchange petrol's value in dollar. But from this exchange they get protection. That was the main promise of the entire petrodollar system. And now this worked for a very, very long time. Certain countries didn't feel safe, like in Iran, Saddam came to power and attacked Kuwait, and Kuwait needed to be saved, and America instantly attacked. That wasn't really about the mass murder weapons, rather than it was about protecting the system and keeping the promise, because promise was we are going to protect these highest petrol producing countries, being Saudis and Qatars. And when Iraq leader changed and Saddam came to power and attacked Saudis, they needed, they basically went, well, we have America needs to protect us, because, well, we made the agreement, we put our signature on this paper that says that you are going to protect us, and in the exchange we are going to give our value, petrol's value, change from our own local currency to your currency, dollar. And America attacked Iraq and won, because Iraq was a very small country and didn't really have that much of a military going on. It had a good military. It didn't really have a hegemony kind of military, considering that America is a hegemony title, and this hegemony has an insane amount of military power. So of course it didn't have any chance basically win that war. And you might be like, well, there was Vietnam, there was this, there was that. Yes, but in these situations, people in power or people who are managing the army were smarter than the Saddam. Saddam wanted to sit down and just make defense. That is not the way you defeat a hegemony. You can't defeat a hegemony in a military war where you constantly sit down. But I don't think you can win any war like that, to be honest with you. Without making a counteroffensive, you can generally win a defensive war. You need to make a good counteroffensive, and if you constantly make a good counteroffensive, you might even change the shape of the history and produce something that everybody thought it was impossible to produce. As per se, that being basically Turkish history and history of Atatürk, and how basically he stabilized this entire region and produced a state. That he literally defeated so many different states in this single region. Anyway, that was a fun fact basically. Anyway, now there was different enemies within these lands for these biggest petrol producing countries, these being specifically Iran and Israel. And Iran and Israel is constantly being there, constantly doing things basically opposite of what these countries want, and basically wants to have a control on petrodollar system and other things like energy. Iran still today is trying to prevent a pipeline built on this, so that petrol and gas produced from Turkmenistan can go from here to directly to Europe. Just to give an example on how here Iran really what makes Iran so important on economical basis. They are basically economical moves are basically set on preventing people from doing certain things so that they could benefit from it. And they benefit a lot from it. And because of this, especially these petrol producing countries were very anxious, let's say, because of Israel and Iran. Now you guys have understood what Iran is. Now when it comes to Israel's reason being why it's being targeted by these countries and why it's seen as a basically an enemy of their economical system, well, it's very simple. They want to settle everywhere there is. They first want to get their Dutch title from, as I said in the Israel video, that these people still technically counts, like they are not Dutchies. They don't have the Dutch title of Israel or Palestine. They are still technically counts. They first need to have the Dutch title, and after they get the Dutch title, they need to try to expand to the Empire title. Empire title being from river to river, and basically engulfs the entire place, basically. So, as you can see, this religion difference causes these petrodollar countries to basically be anxious about, especially these two countries, but there are other things that they are anxious about too, and they tend to basically dictate what America is going to do next in this part of the region. Well, they were basically the politic setter on the Middle East region, but with Israel basically getting a lot of hooks on American politicians, it changed from their hands to Israel's hand, and Israel used it a lot of hooks on military things, like attacking Iran in certain ways that benefited them, but these petrodollar countries are pretty okay with Israel and Iran fighting, because well, they were okay with it unless it hurt them. Now, as you can, every single one of you can see, you might be like, why does Strait of Hormuz is this important? Why does every single petrol goes from here to outside of the world? Well, interestingly enough, these petrodollar countries didn't really develop their country in a matter of pipeline and basically below the ground construction. When it comes to they didn't really do these things. And in today's timelines, Turkey being my own country and my own government came up with 3 different ways to actually get things to Europe and other side of the world. That being one from adding a Basra and basically this Strait of Hormuz, kind of not Strait of Hormuz but Iraq, and adding extending the already existing petrol pipeline to here, so that the pipeline can go from here to here, then to basically Europe through Anatolian pipeline, and basically connect these things, so that rather than needing to go through this Strait of Hormuz, basically most of the petrol already goes from there. Most of the petrol starts to go from here, giving an alternative to what is exactly happening now. Qatar produces like 10% of the world's liquid gas, and they again sent this from Strait of Hormuz, and they sent their petrol from Strait of Hormuz too. But second project from my government, my country's government, is the fact that basically connect this to again this pipeline, gas pipeline that there is, and basically make it go from Qatar to Europe through land rather than Strait of Hormuz. And third one is I think I mentioned it, is from Turkmenistan, and there is already a existing there is already an existing pipeline from Turkey to Azerbaijan, and they basically need to make a pipeline in here and basically connect the pipeline from in the Azerbaijan to Turkmenistan, but Russia and Iran doesn't really want this because, well, it doesn't really benefit them, and as I said, Iran benefits a lot from these countries not having this land connection when it comes to pipelines. And because these pipelines don't, but because Iran tries to prevent these things and these land pipelines doesn't exist, and there is no alternative way to basically Strait of Hormuz, Iran actually gains a very huge advantage when it comes to conflict, and can prevent basically the world petrodollar economical system from going on. By producing these alternatives, there could be, if they produced, they are simply just projects right now and nothing is done when it comes to these things, but if this happens, that would that would make Turkey have a lot of economical growth and a lot of influential growth, and this wouldn't really be liked by most of the countries around here. However, well, as long as this conflict goes on, there is a need for an alternative to Strait of Hormuz, because we are kind of experiencing what can happen, and let me say this, the worst didn't even happen. Like, the worst was completely stopping everything going from Strait of Hormuz, and that didn't even happen, so we should be thankful to that. Let me look. Oh yes, when it comes to petrodollar system, there is other parts and other players in this economical world system. There are being China. China, as many of you might know, is a very big economical and industrial rival to America. And America, even though Donald Trump said this many times. Oh, sorry, I skipped certain things. Currently, Trump and American government cannot protect this system, and so these countries are becoming more and more anxious and trying to find alternatives too. And because of this, there is a very big change happening in Middle East, and there is a lot of YouTube videos that you might have seen that constantly trying to say that the world economic order is slipping away from America and it's changing. Well, it's changing, but I would doubt that it will be not in America's control, because as you know, Turkey is America's ally, and if shit hits the fan, America just do the Turkish Turkey's projects and basically be fine with everything that is going on, and you know what, even get more aggressive. And when I say even more aggressive, I mean more than one ground invasions happening at the same time, kind of aggression, because it would allow them, if they give alternatives to Strait of Hormuz, it would give them option to be aggressive. But Trump is currently failing at protecting the petrodollar system, so people are doubting him, rightfully, because he's failing at it. So there is this kind of situation is going on around when it comes to petrodollar system being the world economic system currently. There are other parts of this world economic system, like China, and China is, as you can see, is a hegemonic state, and this hegemonic state is very powerful, especially in industrial side of this and they basically produce most of their things, but they still need to get the petrol from these countries, they especially get it from Iran, if I remember correctly. And this China produces generally insane amount of industrial goods, and as they produce this amount of goods, they tend to be much more independent from other countries who are within this economical order, and that generally is under the hegemony of America. And even though America is a hegemon title, there is currently one more hegemon title, being China. And there is a contender that is trying to be a hegemon title, that is Russia. However, they do seem to be failing at their economical and industrial side of this. To be considered a hegemony, it isn't just how big is your land is. Soviets are actually failed at this, and basically the entire country split apart. But Russia is already split apart, but it could be split apart again, and that's what generally the European countries want. However, that's fun fact kind of a thing going on. Anyway, Russia is trying to be a contender for this. However, they can't be. They failed at especially the industrial and economical side of this, and especially at infrastructural side of this. However, China was a contender back in 90s and 80s, and they basically managed the industrial and economical side of this really good, and basically become a hegemon title. They are not a hegemon contender anymore. They are actually a hegemony title, and they basically want their own piece from the world economic system. That piece being Taiwan, generally turns around the shenanigans and the conflict turns around in Taiwan, because in Taiwan Taiwan produces basically the entire world's chip supply, and that's very important. Most of people don't seem to know this, but apparently petrol is used in production of chips. I don't remember exactly how it was used, but that's a very important thing to remember in here. And China basically wants a piece of this economical order, saying that he's is a common title and he should get his piece of this. And there is a basically rivalry going on between America and China, but America and China seems to came to an understanding that China has become a hegemon and they need to have their own part of economical. They need to have the. Sorry, my throat got very dry right now. They need to have their own piece of the cake, and that cake being the economical world system, and that's what they want. There is one more not player, but one more system that we need to talk about, and that's being BRICS. As you guys might as well know, BRICS is a economical alliance between India, China and Russia and many other more countries that are basically has problems with exchanging their currencies, and they basically want to be out from the American hegemony of America. And as I said, they don't want to exchange their currency with American's currency to buy things. That's generally what's going on in the current economical system. The world's current economical system relies on exchanging your local currency to dollar and buying things, and these countries do not want that, so they formed this economical alliance between them. Even though India and China basically has conflicts around somewhere in here in mountainous ranges. Fun fact, they have no weapon agreement on it there, and they basically have flanks formations and you know, close combats, like literally like melee is happening in the region. They can, I don't even know this, but if I remember correctly, they can't even throw the sticks. They need to hit it, they can hit it and such, but they can't even throw it. And they have very interestingly in 2026 they basically having melees in this part of the region. Anyway, continue on. These BRICS countries want to not exchange their local currency for dollar to buy things. And well, BRICS, if anything happens to you, which I personally do not believe that there will be any change on American hegemony, economical hegemony, if America itself doesn't get into a very big, very messy civil war and get split apart, not to three different states, but more like 10, 15 kind of states. If something like that doesn't happen, I don't think the current world trade system is going to change. And if something like this happen and the current economical system goes away, I think that people are generally going to go to the old way, you know, go to the traditional way and exchanging the local currency with the local currency kind of way, and more like, you know, as BRICS wants it basically. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've been yapping about for a basically long time. My throat dried up and I need to go drink a water, but I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Please like and subscribe, and please push the notification bell, and please just follow the content. That would mean a lot to me. Have a good day.